Hi peeps, welcome to the IGV VD Edu Space 3.0. Yeah, so I hope you can hear me. Maybe just to kick it off to do a bit of a mic testing. Can you tell me in the chat box your name and which LC you're from? And yeah, then let's just get a very quick introduction to see whether you can hear me or not. Then we'll get started. Yeah. So tell me who you are. I see there's 9 people in the chat. Can all of you all hear me? Okay, so I hope you can hear me. So I'll get started with the space. So again, welcome to VD Education 3.0, Finance and Legalities. So this is going to be a very exciting education because we are covering quite a range of topics here. Yeah, so I hope that you're ready with your water, you're comfortable in your chair and with your notebook as well, because there are going to be a lot of things. And so be sure to take note of all the call to actions that we have. So just to go through some of the things that we have today. Wait, let me see. Give me a moment. Not sure. Is it working? Okay, yes, it's working. Great. Yes. So yeah, so go through the objectives of the space today. The first one is to actually understanding the content of agreements for EP and partners. So this is very important because when we talk about value delivery, of course, one of the things that we need to ensure is that all the legalities aspects are taken care of. So this is the one of the things which carry the highest risks, especially when it comes to EP and partners. So and the most important thing is that when we are asking these stakeholders to sign, we ourselves need to understand what it actually means. Because I think a lot of the times when we go through the agreements, we don't really check what the contents mean, and then that's why there's a lot of conflict with EPs who disagree or they are very scared to sign. And from our side, either the OC or the helpers, they are not really able to comfort the EP or to explain to them properly because most of the times even they don't understand what the agreement is. Yeah. So then the next thing we're going to go through is about risk management and a bit of a firefighting SOP. So this is what needs to happen when you have a conflict or a situation during the realization, and there's a specific SOP that you should follow. And so we are going to teach it to you so that you can remember this as well. So, and the last thing is understanding how to control budget and cash flow during realization. So this will be done by my EST Inc. Yeah, so so that's basically the 3 topics that we're going to go through today. So I can't through this platform for YouTube Live, I cannot actually interact with you. So if you have any questions, please make sure that throughout the whole consultancy, throughout the whole education, just type it in the chat box, and then at the end of the space, we will actually have a Q&A session, so we can cover the things that you need to know. Yeah, so that's basically the 3 things that we're going to go through today. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start off with agreements. Yeah. So basically, when we're talking about agreements, we're talking about a standardized template which we provide to all LCs. So this is a template which we create nationally and is reviewed by our legal advisor, and then we pass it down to all LCs to then pass on to the EPs to sign. So what is the objective of this agreement is to basically set expectations with EPs about the project criteria, activities, and also JD. And lastly, is also to set expectations with EPs about the LC hosting policies and EP fee coverage. So later on, when you get the output for this, you'll be able to view the agreement on your own, or you can look at your LC's own copy. It should be the same one. So if later on after this space, you realize that your agreement is different than what we have, then you know that this is something you must change, because we use a standardized template, and if you don't follow this template, then you will basically in the future when we have an audit, you will fail the audit. Yeah, so this is very important. So you can view the agreement. Yeah, and I'll go through each clause of the agreement and briefly explain what it means. So I'm not expecting a perfect understanding of this. I understand that everyone here is not like an expert in law or a law student. Like if you are a law student, then that's great. It means that you will already understand this. But if not, it's fine as well. Yeah, I'm not expecting this. So yeah, so so to go through the first part, it should look like this. So if your agreement, the top of your agreement does not look like this, then you know that you have like either the not updated agreement or you're not even using the national template. Yeah, so the text in yellow is the one that must be changed. So in this link here, I will actually provide to you the agreement template for you to be able to modify and add your own things as LC. So what you can directly use it, but if you want to change any clauses, then you must ensure if you are a VPFL, then you must ensure that you send it to me. Yeah, so for this I understand that there are VPFL here, and there are also members from FL department, and there are also some project directors. So all this is equally important for you to know, especially if you're project director. It means that you are the final responsible for the whole project, right? So if your EPs are signing this agreement, you should definitely know what it contains. Yeah, so for the yellow parts, these are the things that you can change. So Isaac in ... depending which LC you're from. And then you can fill all the different details according to your project and like the realization dates and so on. Yeah, so for parties here, basically this is just the stakeholders. So the first part of the agreement just lets us know who this agreement is between. So this agreement is between the LC and also the EP. Yeah, that's just the most important thing here. Yeah. So then the next part here, so I'm going to go through some of the jargon which you don't really understand, and I'll kind of like summarize it. Yeah. So recitals is basically, it's just kind of like a summary about what the agreement should be about, or like it's just some basic information. So over here, the recitals is basically just about Isaac and Isaac GV. So it's to let you know, to let everyone know that this is just the basic information of what the agreement would be about. Yeah. So then the next part of this is the yellow part again is to insert the project description. So this is where you have to modify yourself and just put in the project description according to what your project is. Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, yeah. So then the next part is the duration. So you need to put the realization start date and end date here. Yeah. And then so that's basically the duration. So it means that this agreement is only valid within the first day until the last day of realization. Other than that, it is not valid anymore. Okay. Yeah. So then the fulfillment of general hosting, Isaac entity policies and procedure. It just means that basically what is our role as a hosting entity, as the IGV, the Isaac IGV in this case. Basically, you can find it in Schedule A. So Schedule A is in the very last part of the agreement, there will be something called Schedule A. And basically, Schedule A is something like an appendix or attachment. Okay, and in this this attachment is for the XPP. So we have like a exchange policy, and we put part of the policy here. We highlight what is the hosting entity role here. So that's the thing that you can see later on when you go through the actual agreement, you'll be able to see that. Yeah, so it's just to let us know that there is this such a thing, and the full criteria or the things that we as a hosting entity that we need to do is listed in that part. Yeah, so it doesn't make sense to copy paste the whole thing there. You can just refer to that part. Yeah. So that is just the top two parts. Yeah, so then when we move on to the third part, it's basically about the EP fee. So the EP fee exists because currently IGV project sustainability has always been an issue, right? So at this stage, for ISAC in Malaysia, we collect a certain fee from the EPs, but there's a condition about this fee, because the EP is the EP fee is only used for a very specific purpose. So, for example, let's say if we collect 550 ringgit from the EP, we can only use it for the following things. Number one, their accommodation. Number two, their transport for airport arrival pickup. Number three, other transport costs for the project, which means like going to work and things like this, not for their own personal transport, like going shopping, taking Grab to restaurant, all these kinds of thing. No, it's only for going to work. Okay, the fourth thing is IPS, and the last thing is lead spaces. So it states very clearly what this EP fee is able to be used for, and you cannot use this EP fee to cover other things. Okay, so it's only to be used for the GV project. So this is one of the most important clauses that you need to know, because when your EP comes to when your EP is realized, and then when you're going through the IPS and everything like this, and you're collecting the fee and you want them to sign, so sometimes the EP will ask like, okay, so what is this money going to be used for? Like, why must I pay you this extra 550 ringgit or 600 ringgit? So then this is where you can actually explain to them very clearly. This is a very clear breakdown of how you're using the money, and you won't be using the money for anything else. Okay, yeah, so that is basically the EP fee. Yeah, and yeah, so then the rest of these things here, it gives you more details about what it means, like for accommodation or airport arrival pickup and the project related transport and so on. So it's just more elaboration and more details. So for example, like accommodation, it shall be secure for the EP only from the first day until last day of realization. Okay, including the arrival and departure dates. So it's like yeah, so that's the only thing. So for example, if later on they want to stay for another 2 weeks to go holiday or things like this, then we don't cover that. We only cover the accommodation because it is required for the project. Okay, yeah, so airport arrival pickup, it means that we provide services where we either meet the EP at the airport, or we give them instructions, and then later on for them to come on their own, and then later on they can actually claim the cost of coming. Okay, so but it still means that we still allocate a certain fund for them. Yeah, and project related transport costs, it means that we only include transportation to schools, NGO organizations, which means it's only for work purposes and during working hours. Yeah, so no giving them money to go clubbing and things like this, okay? Yeah. Yeah, and then the next thing is for IPS, for incoming preparation seminar. So we prepare, the EP fee does cover this as well, and it covers any meals and transport and things like this. Or even like let's say if you're inviting facilitators or chairs, then you can use that to be covered as well. Yeah, and the last thing is for lead spaces, and these are the things. It's the same concept, which is you cover their transfer meals or any faci costs. Yeah, so these are basically the things which are covered under EP fee. And what it does not cover, it also states very clearly, which is anything to do with their own visa, their border run, their insurance, medical stuff, and their personal stuff. Yeah, so that's the thing here. So this is something which I'm only explaining very briefly. So just also make sure that you can read through it very carefully as well. Yeah, but that's just a general idea. So some of the text, it seems very complicated, but actually the meaning is very simple. Yeah, you just need to take some time to read through and understand it. Yeah, so and then for 3.5, what this means is that the EP acknowledges, means that they agree to the accommodation assigned and provided to the EP is non-negotiable. It means that they cannot because before they are approved and everything, they would already have seen like pictures of the accommodation and like the house, the room, the bed that they're staying in and things like this, right? So this agreement means that you've already acknowledged that you know that this is your accommodation. So halfway through the project, you cannot be like, oh, I don't want to stay here anymore. I decide that I don't like it halfway through the project, because at the start of the project, you already signed the agreement. You already agree that it should look like this, or it should the condition is like this already. So it makes it super clear. So like this is a very clear expectation setting for EPs. Is like if they have anything that they are not satisfied at the start, they should really address it at the start and not halfway through the project. So you can avoid all these kinds of conflicts happening. Yeah. So that is also the purpose of the agreement, like to set a proper expectation, right? Yeah. Then going into the next part is the project criteria and conditions. So this part is mostly something like the JD. So as part of the agreement, the EP is committed to carrying out the following actions. So this is the thing that you need to state, like what are the things that they'll be doing throughout the project. Okay. Yeah. So then what this 4.2 means is that if the EP does not fulfill their part of the actions or the tasks or like the activities or JD, it means that as a hosting entity, we reserve the right to break them or we to not have them in the project. Yeah, so that's just the project criteria and conditions. Yes. Then the fifth thing is about accommodation criteria and conditions. So this is also something which is very tricky because accommodation for all IGV projects is the thing that we invest in the most because it is the most expensive thing, but usually the return of investment is very low, meaning to say that even if we spend a lot of money, usually EPs are still very not satisfied, and this is one of the things which always prevent us from getting complete. Okay, so this is something that you must be very clear about and how to explain it to your EPs as well. What this clause states here is that we are responsible for finding the suitable accommodation. And what we mean by suitable is that they have the following 7 things. Number 1, it has a bed or mattress. Number 2, it has aircon or fan. Number 3 is that they have a washing machine or nearby they have like a dobby that they can actually use to wash their clothes. Number 4 is that they have like a basic cooking kind of thing. Number 5 is that they must have a shower, of course. 6 is a small fridge, and 7 is a running water or filter water, so they can actually have drinking water. So it must have these 7 things. So the quality and the condition, it can change. It can be a very fancy place, or it can be a very plain looking place. But as long as it has all these 7 things, that's the most important thing here. So that's why it's also very important at the start of like attraction and everything, when you're having interviews with EP, really make sure that they understand that this is the place that they're going to stay. So what must not happen is that you show them one picture, but in the end when they come, the room is different and things like this. So that is a very wrong expectation already. So the process should be you show them the thing, it is they agree, they're okay with it. When they come to Malaysia, they're okay with it because nothing has changed. They sign the agreement, they understand, and then hopefully throughout the whole project there will be no complaints and things like this. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, so for that's basically the idea. So for 5.3, it's about the EP needs to understand that at the end of the day, the LC, the hosting entity, which is us, we are responsible for the allocation of EP into the accommodation and assigning sleeping places. This happens because a lot of times, like EP say, oh, I want this room, I want that room, and then like there's a lot of conflicts that can happen. So the most fair way is that for the LC to assign the sleeping place. So we have this clause here just as a precaution. Yeah. Yes. And then 5.4, it's about that the sharing of a sleeping space. So because sometimes the place that we find for them to stay, it is just a place for them to sleep, but not necessarily like a very fancy place where they can have their own individual room. So they need to really understand this. And so 5.4 means that the EP accepts that they will be assigned a sleeping area, but it's not necessarily like an individual room. Maybe it's like 2 people room, maybe it's like 4 people room, but for sure they will have a place to sleep. Yeah. Yeah. And then 5.5 is that the EP understands and they accept that the accommodation will have mixed gender. Yeah, so it can be that it's just there will be guys and girls staying in the house, but maybe the room is only a female room, and then another room is only male room. But it's just that within the house, they need to understand that they will be under the same household, but it won't be like 2 different houses for 2 different genders. Yeah. Then 5.6, it's about the EP understanding that if anything happens, like damages to the house, furniture and things like this, then they are liable, means that they need to pay. Okay? So they need to pay for any damages that occur. So this is not on the LC. So that's why it's very important before the EPs come, the LC. Okay, so what should happen the most proper way is that when the landlord or when the owner or whatever gives you the key to the place on the very first day, take pictures so that you really understand what is the condition of the place. So then when the EP is here, you can actually cross-check. You can see what is the changes in the damages. So because sometimes if you are not careful and you don't check the place after you receive the key to the place, then it may be there may be confusion that occurs, like you don't know whether the EP broke the thing or whether the OC broke the thing or whether the thing was already broken before you all came. Yeah, so in that case, you wouldn't want to pay for something which was not your fault as well. So that is how you need to be very careful about those liabilities. Yeah, so 5.7 is about utility bills, which means water and electricity. So we put a limitation here first, but this can change depending on your project, depending on the expenses that you can afford. But we put that limitation of 150 first because it shouldn't exceed. So after it exceeds, maybe they're using really excessive like water and like let's say electricity, like maybe like every day or whole day they open aircon when they should maybe only use it at night. Then they have a very high electric bill. So it means that we will not cover the excess ones. Yeah, so the excess will be divided amongst all the EPs that share it. Yeah, so this is something that we have here as well. Yeah. Then 5.9 is about no smoking pets and parties, because obviously you don't want to have noise complaints and things like this. Yeah, so, and you don't want pets and stuff like that. So basically, this is about the criteria of the accommodation. Again, as I said, this is just a standardized thing that we put based on all the feedback and based on like what makes the most sense to us nationally. But if your LC wants to customize certain things, like for example, I know certain LCs collect like a deposit from the EPs, which will be returned to them at the end of the project if they don't damage anything. So if you make those changes in the clauses, you need to make sure that you send it to me to review as well. So don't make the changes and then let the EP sign without a national site knowing. Yeah, so that's very important. Okay, so this part is about termination, which is about if there's any breach of the agreement, which means any party breaks any rules in the agreement, then that party has 14 days to change it. Yeah, so you need to if you break anything, you need break any of the rules, you have 14 days to undo the damages that you did. Yeah, then if you don't, then we have the right to actually terminate the agreement. Yeah, so basically that's the kind of that's just the general idea of what termination means. Okay. Then prohibition of unlawful activity, which it just means that the EP, you're not allowed to have any activities which is against the law or immoral towards Isaac. Yeah. So yeah, so like no sexual harassment, no beating up another EP and things like this. Yeah. Yeah. That's very clear. So in indemnity. So indemnity means like compensation. So it means that if any losses occur, one party has to compensate another party. Okay, so it means that compensation will occur to either party, but it will not. But we will let's say compensation out of any recklessness or wrongful misconduct. It means that let's say for the EP or from our side, we are very reckless, or let's say they were partying until like 3 a.m. and then they got into accident and then they say, hey Isaac, you must pay me damages because I got hurt. But then the thing is this losses from the EP side came from their wrongful misconduct or recklessness, because maybe they were having a party in the house when they shouldn't have, and maybe they were like getting like drunk driving or something like that. It's like they're doing something which is against the way that we have stated that they should behave. Then in that case, the compensation will not apply. Yeah. So again, the compensation will not apply if the party will fails to comply with the applicable laws. It means that if they break the law, we cannot expect that we will compensate them. Yeah. And the third criteria is that if there's any breach of the agreement, which means that if they don't fulfill any part of this agreement, then they don't have the right to demand compensation as well. Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah. So then very last part about this, so just hang in there. I'm not sure whether you think this is very dry, but it is very, very important. So yeah, so please just try to concentrate a bit longer. So number 9 is about confidentiality, which is just the fact that this agreement should be private law. It's not something that you talk about very open, because some of the information there is a bit more private, because maybe it has details about the EP's like personal information and things like this. So yeah, and so that's the idea. And so special conditions is that because earlier I mentioned there's an exchange policy, the exchange program policy. So it means that for any of the things which in this agreement, which conflicts with the XVP, then the XVP comes first. We will always follow the XVP before we follow this agreement. Okay, yeah, so the XVP will prevail. So in this case, it means that we always follow the XVP first. Yeah, so then number 11 is governing law, which means that this agreement follows everything under Malaysian law. So it means that all parties must follow the jurisdiction of the courts of Malaysia. Yeah, so it means that don't do anything which is against Malaysian law, just to be very, very, as a summary, that's what it means. Yeah, so that is the part about agreements. Then moving on to financial partners and also learning partner agreements. I'm not going to go through the whole agreement because most of the clauses are very similar, but I do want to emphasize one point, which is that to really to ensure that you understand the obligations of your LC and partner to deliver the project. So I only want to emphasize on one specific clause because the people here today, which are more FL people and also project directors, my assumption is that currently you are not doing the sales, so you don't at this stage, like today, you don't need to understand every clause, but you need to, but for the purposes of value delivery and during realization peak, you really need to understand what each party promises each other, and so you can ensure that you can track the fulfillment of this obligation. Because when you fulfill the deliverables and the obligations, it means that your LC and the project can have a better reputation with your partner, and it can contribute to a long-term partnership as well. So this is super, super important. Okay, so for ISAC itself, so within the agreement, you will find this clause, obligations of ISAC and obligations of partner. So remember to read through it very carefully to understand what we promise the partner and what the partner promised us. So let's say, for example, in this case, obligation of partner is that the partner promises a certain amount of money for the project. So that's very, very clear. Okay, and for this is more like a learning partner agreement, which is for them to provide ISAC like a place, a session, to like a workshop to conduct like a workshop, yeah, and to participate in GV as well. So that is the agreement from their side. And what is the agreement from our side? Yeah, so that's the thing that we need to be very, very clear on. And so just as is so at the end of the day, for agreement, the things that I really want you to take away from this is that really please go through the agreement on your own, and let's make it a goal for ourselves that for this winter we can ensure that for all projects, all EPs will sign their agreements, and for all partners, they can sign the agreements as well. So I know for a lot of LCs, you're struggling with learning partners because your learning partners don't really want to sign. But I want to emphasize the importance of having this signature, because without this signature, it's very easy for partners to pull out or change the terms of the agreement, and for EPs as well. Yeah, so if you ever encounter an uncooperative EP or uncooperative partner, really try to solve it. And if you really cannot solve it on an LC level, please inform MC so that we can support you in this matter as well. Because when it comes to IGV project audit, we always audit whether your agreements have been signed. And for this time, a lot of LCs fail for this part of the audit because you do not have signed EP agreements and you do not have signed partner agreements. Yeah. If the part for signing is empty, I will fail that part automatically because there should be the signature there. Yeah. So that's the most important thing. Yeah. So if you have any questions about this part, just write it in the chat box and then we can go through it later. Yeah. So the next part I'll go through is about risk management. Yeah. And so this is a thing which I've went through a few times with the VPFL as well, so I won't emphasize on that so much. But what I do want to talk about is just generally, again, to as a refresher about what are the 5 risk types and what is the SOP for firefighting. Okay, So for risk types, there are 5 different kinds of risks that can occur in ISAP operations, but here I will emphasize more on IGV. Okay, so the first thing is can be safety and health, where your LC members or EPs are in danger because of health or security problems. So health and security can anything between like natural disaster like earthquake, tsunami, or like kind of disease, or those kind of spreadable like disease and infections, or even like let's say any danger because of like accidents or things like this. Yeah, so that is a risk that can potentially occur. Yeah, so for legal side, it means that maybe your LC faces legal problems because of a certain kind of risk. So let's say if your EPs don't get the right kind of visa, or maybe they don't bring enough money, so when they arrive in Malaysia, they are detained at the immigration. So that is a legal risk to them. Okay. Yeah, so the third thing is a financial risk, because let's say a big part of your budget is EP fee. So let's say one of the financial risks is that your EPs don't want to pay, or maybe there were damages in the accommodation or something like this, and then there's a lot of compensation. So this is where your IGV project faces any financial problem. So then it will go into this risk category. Yeah. So the fourth thing is reputational, which means that there's the perception of your project, the reputation of your project or your LC is affected. So let's say you have a project and then your EPs are very wild and they go party, or they are very rude to the community or something like this, or like maybe they are drinking alcohol during GV. Obviously, your reputation of GV is going to be affected, of your global village, or your reputation of the project or your LC will be affected. Yeah, so this is something which is very risky, because if one small incident can actually lead to a very big thing, which maybe your university don't let you open projects anymore, things like this. Yeah. So the last one is future ops, which is future operations, which means that there's a risk if you're expanding your operation into new markets. So let's say, for example, usually your projects are you have your projects in a certain area, but now you're trying to venturing. Maybe you're let's say CU, they usually have their projects in Miri, then maybe they decide to expand into Sabah. So that is a risk as well. So what is the risk associated with expanding into a new place, or certain risks which affect future operations? So let's say if your LC has too many legal cases, it will affect your future operations, because maybe no one wants to become IR partners with your LC anymore because your LC has too many cases, or your NPS score is very low. So we know that data is everything, and if your NPS score is very low, maybe it will affect your operations, because they just don't want to partner with you anymore, because they don't trust that you can provide a good experience for EPs. So these are risks. And why is this important? Is because whenever you have a project, it's a lot of project management, especially for realization peak. There's going to be a lot of firefighting. So it's good if you can, before the project starts, already identify what are the risks that can occur, and how you and develop action plan in case the thing actually occurs. Then you already have a plan. So you prepare the plan earlier, so that when it happens, you won't have to be in a panic. You can just directly take the plan that you prepared earlier and just implement the solution, instead of, oh my god, something happened, then only you figure out what to do. So that's the difference. So for VPFL, you'll see that a lot of changes have already happened, whereby in the recent summer audit, I've also asked you to do a risk assessment and management, and the recent DMF submission for next year's summer, we also include this already in the DMF. So it's a very conscious way of how, as VPFL and like project directors, our role is not just to and to have the highest approvals or things like this, but it's also to ensure that when the project happens, we can mitigate or reduce or avoid the kind of risk that happen. So this is our responsibility as well, because a high risk project is very dangerous to the LC and also to the EPs. Like, we do not want to put our EPs in danger. Yeah, so that is basically for risk. And there's basically a risk matrix. And this is something which, how we can actually measure the risk based on 2 factors, which is the impact, which is whether the impact of the risk is very high, and also likelihood, which means the frequency, whether there's a high chance of it happening or whether there's a low chance of it happening. So based on this matrix, there's a response that you should take. So for example, if the impact is very minor, the consequence of the risk is very minor and it's rarely it will happen, then it's a risk that we can take. But if the impact of the risk is very significant, let's say an EP applies for the wrong visa, comes to Malaysia, and then is detained at immigration, and because of this case, your LC is shut down, or ISAC in Malaysia shut down, then the impact for sure is significant. And the likelihood that this can occur maybe is possible or frequent because maybe you have a lot of EPs coming from this country, let's say from Pakistan and so on, and you know that for immigration wise, this is a country where it's they are not they're, this is a country where the immigration is a bit more watchful, or they will be more, they will look into, they will scrutinize it more, right? So that's something we need to consider as well. Yeah, so if let's say if it's the impact significant and the likelihood is very frequent, then you know that this is a red color risk, which the response is that we need to take a very we need to really ensure that this thing does not happen, because if it happens, the consequence is just too big already. Yeah, so that's just the idea of risk assessment. Yeah, so I think for VPFL, it would be good if you can go through this process together with your project directors. Yeah, so I know that this next flow diagram seems very tiny, so you don't have to look into all the words. The most important thing which I want to let you know, which is the flow of case solving. So let's say if something happens during realization there's a case of firefighting, the flow of solving the case is usually OC first, okay? OC and then OCP. So if the OC is unable to solve it, then this is something that you need to inform your VP, so that you can bring in your VP, your VP, LCVP, and also your LCP to solve together. If the LC is unable to solve the case, then you involve MC. Okay, if MC is unable to solve the case together with all of you, then we will involve the Entity Control Board, the ECB. And if we cannot solve it, finally we will involve the ICB, which is the highest level of case solving for all these kind of exchange exchange cases. So that is basically the flow of case solving. Just in case like you're wondering what happens during firefighting, this must be the flow that you follow. Okay. Yeah. So on your own time, please make sure that you read through this flow of case solving is basically the summary of this flow diagram, but it also contains a lot of interesting information, so you can go through yourself as well. Yeah, and if you want to go through the XPP, if you're very curious about what XPP is, you can actually click it over here later, and I've really linked it for you, so you can go through it on your own. Yeah, so the last part for this is I want to brief about firefighting. So on firefighting, what we mean by firefighting, if some like an emergency or a certain situation occurs, what is the action that we must do to overcome this? So the nature of firefighting is that the case is something that you do not expect. Like you do not expect an accident to happen, right? It comes out of nowhere, it's very sudden. So number two is that our response to this must be very quick. The communication must be very clear and it must be very fast. If something urgent happens, like let's say EP's money is stolen or EP gets into an accident, you don't want to wait. You don't want to wait 1 week to solve it, right? It must be solved preferably within 24 hours, right? So that's the idea. So what happens is that when a situation occurs, the first thing that must happen is that the OC must report the case to your team leader. So in this case, your team leader is the project director. So as if you are project director, make sure that you really are aware of this, and make sure that your OC knows that they must brief you. Okay. Yeah. So the second thing is that the team leader will be the PIC to coordinate and communicate about the case. So maybe it is your OC members who are solving it, but in terms of delegating tasks to solve or communicating to people, the project director will be the person, because especially during firefighting, you don't want too many people talking at once, because it can be very confusing who has the latest information and so on. So just ensure that the project director is always the person who communicates about this case. This is the only person who will have the latest information. Okay, that is the most important thing that I want to emphasize. Okay, so then the third thing, what must happen is that immediately the project director must inform the LCP the VP IGV, and the VPFL. So there are two ways that you must inform. You can inform through the quickest way, which is through Telegram or WhatsApp, but officially you must write an email to communicate about this as well, so we can have it in writing. So why is it important that you must have it through email? It's because in the future, it'll be easy to refer to this case, and let's say later on when you involve more stakeholders, like let's say for example, the EP manager or the EP's parents or things like this, you will have like an official documentation through email, which can show them, which has like a timestamp or like the details about the events and things like this. So must always leave an email trail. That's very important. Okay. Yeah, so then the fourth thing is that within 24 hours, the team leader must inform the sending entity. Through their preferred messaging app, also it depends, like, that like mostly they like to use WeChat, or it can be Line, or it can be like whatever. Like, basically, the fastest way to reach them, use that messaging app. And again, officially through email, and make sure to CC your LCP, your IGV, and your FL VPs. Yeah, so this is very important because we need to make sure that the other country is aware of the crisis as well. So the worst thing that can happen is that if you don't inform them, maybe if it happened to the EP, the EPs will be talking on their own. Then they inform the LC, they inform their country. Then suddenly the MCVP or the LCP of the other entity is approaching you to say, hey, why is this happening to my EP? How come I don't know one? Yeah, so you must make sure that you are the person who tells them first, so that you can be more in control of the situation, and you and the other entity can solve it together. Yeah, so that's the most important thing, like control the narrative. That's crisis management. Okay. Yeah, so if there are situations involving crime and police or immigration, the LCP must be the one to inform the MCVP IGV and MCVP FL. Again, it's through the quickest communication platform, which for us is Telegram, and the second way is through email. So this is very important because when you're involving official government or authorities, this kind of thing, MC must be informed, right? Because at the end of the day, who takes accountability for this kind of people is that most likely it's going to be us who are going to be talking, right? Yeah, so or maybe we won't be talking to them, but at the very least, make sure the MC is aware of this situation, because we don't want to suddenly receive a call from the police or immigration about this case and we don't know what's going on, and then it makes the situation even worse. And it's not that hard for them to get our office phone number as well. You can Google Isaac in Malaysia and you can find it. So the most important thing is that for anything related to this, LCP must inform us. Okay? Yeah. So I will post this SOP and I'll brief also your LCPs later on to ensure that everyone knows. But for the people listening to this space, make sure that you pay attention and you're clear on this. Yeah. The last thing is to submit the case to bit.ly/firefighting. So basically, this is a form that we've prepared for you to submit the cases. This includes all the information that you need to have, including the EP's expat ID, their passport, their visa, what is the details of the case, what time it happened, where did it happen, things like this. So all the information that happened in the case, you put it into this form so that we can use it as a knowledge management. So what usually happens on firefighting is that, okay, so Isaac in Malaysia, we've existed for 50 years, right? And let's not talk so long. Even for the last 5 years, we've been doing IGV, right? But do you or your LC, do you all know about the cases that happened in your IGV in the past? Maybe not. So what this usually means that we have very bad knowledge management, and maybe a lot of the cases are happening now actually happened a few years back as well, but it's happening again and we are not solving it in a smart way. We're just letting it happen again. So why we need to submit this case is because when we have a proper record or documentation of these kind of things, then it'll be easier for us to prevent these things from happening again. We can spot trends, we can identify what is the actual core problem, and we can solve it directly. So it doesn't happen every term and it remains unsolved. Okay? Yeah. So the last thing, just to make sure everyone is clear, is that if the situation requires a police report, for example, because it's a crime, let's say sexual harassment, theft, assault, all these kind of things, or maybe it's just a very simple thing, they need a police report because they want to claim for their insurance, please make sure that the EP is brief about the consequence. So this is not a scare tactic. We don't mean like, oh, you could possibly, there's a consequence about making a police report. Like, you don't want to scare them to it. Of course, if the police wants to make a police report, guide them, help them to do it, help them to translate if necessary, if their English is not very good. But the most important thing is that they need to really understand what it means to make a police report. Yeah, so because sometimes this relates to a more sensitive issue, which is like visa things. Yeah, just make sure that the EP really understands that, because you don't want them to be like scared by the police or things like this. So yeah, but of course, again, I want to emphasize that if the EP really wants to make a police report, please guide them to do so. Okay, this is your job as OC to in cases where there's a crime or things like this, to really help them, to support them in this. Okay, yeah, so that's the most important thing. That is for firefighting. So for these two parts for now, I'll just summarize the call to action before we move into the last part, which is for budget. Okay, so for the call to action for this, is make sure that you read through the EP agreement and XVP. Okay. And then the next thing is for project directors and for OC VPFL, please ensure that you go through the project budget with your VPFL to really understand the financial reality of the project. Okay, because right now, especially, not all projects have achieved your goal of approvals and things like this. So it could mean that you're not really you're not your budget is not going according to plan. So you might be currently losing money even before your project has started and so on. So make sure that you really understand it. Yeah. So the next thing is really make sure that you have a session during the realization to explain to your EPs about the agreement and make sure that all of them sign it. So again, our goal is to ensure 100% of EPs sign agreement and 100% of partners sign agreement as well. Yeah, and the last thing is ensure that you brief all your OC about the firefighting SOP. So this is the SOP. Make sure all your OC are brief about it. Okay, so that's very important, because you don't want like only your OC to solve it, but no one else knows about it. Maybe you only find out like 1 week later. That's not acceptable. You must know about the situation as soon as it occurs. Yeah. So basically, that is the call to action for this part. Again, if you have any questions, please write it in the comments and we'll address it later. But for now, I'll stop screen sharing and I'll pass the rest of the space to Ing, so she'll cover the last part, which is about budgeting. All right.
Hi. Okay. Can you all hear me? Yeah, let me check. Okay, cool. Jessie, can I start now?
Yeah, go ahead. You can start.
Okay, cool. So my part is gonna cover about the budget and cash flow management. So let's start with it. Cool. So I believe here not just having the VPFL and also having some of the project leaders or the OCFL. So just briefly go through on what is budgeting. So I'm not gonna read everything here, but basically budgeting, if I say a good budget, how I define is that from a good budget, you are able to see what's gonna happen for your whole plan. So it's basically everything that you wanted to do, it translates into your budget, and from that budget you can notice that what's going to happen during your realization. Yep. Okay, so why are we having this budget control during very delayed peak? So definitely we have to make sure that all of the activity and the resources is properly uh, separate out, and also make sure that all the goals we planned can be happen. And then next thing, we need to monitor expenses to make sure that we are not exceed the budget, and to make sure that the project is able to run smoothly and also can make profit from there. Third thing is that we need to facilitate the communication between the function. That means that between IG, FL, and also PDs, or even outside of the function, like between the any outsider, only even between the EP and also your partners. And lastly, um, why we having this during very during peak, because most of our expenses are happen or occur during this very very during period. So I believe some for the VPFL have see this thing before, the budgeting checklist. So because right now we are focusing on very delivery, so I will just briefly go through it. I think these are all the things that you have done previously to plan the budget, and then your translate your goal into your budget as your income, and also make sure your budget is in profit. I think at this moment only a few project's budget is in deficit. So I hope that the VPFL can go and check it out if let's say it's still in deficit. And then definitely is have to approved by the VPFL. And then all the courses in each phase only can based on the customer flow and also 16 standard. Anything other than that, it can be added in if let's say it's your attraction investment. But other than that, it shouldn't be added in because it's not something that we should cover using our EPP. Yeah. So for the next thing is that what you need to know as the VPFL and also OCFL. So I'm not separating the task according to the rule, but instead I'm separating the task according to the phases. So before that, let's introduce a tracker that you can use. So as you can see here, this is the template you can use for your IG project expenses to track all the expenses throughout your value delivery sections. And you can see here first starting with the EPP because I believe that most of the time when your EP comes, you collect your EPP or even right before or during your IPS to make sure that you have the income first. So in here, you can see all the proper tracker that can be filled by the project leader or the allocate PIC from the IG projects. That means that before the project started, they have to fill in everything here, including the EP names, country, what's the status, either they are arrived or if they are get deported because I think some country they have some issue that they cannot get through the custom or something, and or either like last minute pull out. So you can definitely change the criteria here accordingly, and then where's the project type and CRP box, and then the type of project. Yeah. So from all of here, it should be filled out by the project leaders or who have the EP contents or informations. And then after that, then it will be during when you collect the EPP or even collect the deposit. So this will be filled in by the VPFL or even some OCFL or any allocated FLPIC, including your EP fee, is it paid or not yet? Deposit, is it paid or not yet? How much it can be? And then if let's say after that refund, is it refund when the EP gonna go back? And then how much is it refund? Is it cut out of your logistic or utilities bills or anything? And then what's the date and any comments? So yeah, so definitely you can modify this template, but this one is just a basic to help you to track your EP fee. And the next thing we have here is legalities tracker. Yeah. So as just now Jessie mentioned about the EP agreement is super important and it's something that we should have to record down and also something that you need to pass your audit. So same thing, these are all can be filled in by the project leader or even the PIC. And then the agreement usually is, it depends on your LC, either is collected by the FL PIC or is collected by the IG projects PIC. So yeah, and then is it signed or is it uploaded and everything. So you can actually track this based on, not based on, yeah, basically you can track using this template. And so next thing we're going to introduce about is the expenses tracker. So I believe that you all have checked on the latest on DMF budget. So in the budget, we have like how we separate it out. Like you can see, how's the like according to the phases, how is it direct cost and then is it brand advocacy, value delivery, that is according to which phases of the IG projects. So as you can see here, you can also start with either its attraction, its consideration, value delivery, and brand advocacy, and then the date, and then definitely the category. You can list out a lot of category, as many as you want. It will ease for your for tracking lah. Basically, you can categorize according to the thing that you put in here, either transportation, IPS, accommodation, etc., etc. And then after that, then you have extra detail if let's say needed, and then definitely expenses amount, and then receipt, where's the link of the receipt, and then pay by is something because most of the time the members of the projects will pay first, and after that they get reimbursed back. So you can put down the name, where's who pay for it, and then this one is extra thing. If I say you have any cash in, yeah, if I say don't have, then you can just leave it there. And then in terms of status, then it will be either you approve it, reject it, or reimburse it. As you can see up here, so it will be only filled in by the VPFL or the allocated FLPIC. So the person there will only like either you approve these expenses or either you reject it, and at the end, either you have reimbursed it or not. And you can see there's a few notes here. From here, you can see set the permission only the project leader or the OCFL can fill in. The reason why we set the permission is that to make sure that no one can actually adjust it. Because some of the time, if as a member they're able to change something, it may cause that the detail inside there or the information inside there is not correct. So to make sure that only one person can fill in and the person gonna fill in understand the whole thing inside. Yeah, and this one is only can be filled in by VPFL or the allocated FL because you are the one that reimburse or to approve the expenses. And then you can have more information here. Yeah. And then another thing that I'm going to introduce is about the mileage, because I believe that most of you either will have car or even some of the members, they're going to claim for their mileage. And so same thing here, attraction consideration, because sometimes, for example, for a PD do sell, you're gonna go out and something, and that one is during attraction phase. And yeah, so you can according to phases, and then same thing, the date and also category, it depends. You can change it accordingly. And the route detail is that you can see it's when is it depart, and then the destination and so on. And then this one you can put in, they have to put in the Google link. That means that from one location to another location. And then according to the Google map, and then how long is the mileage. And then definitely it's paid by who. Depends on like which car am I using. If I say using member A car, then is maybe can state the pay by that person. And then this one, total expenses, it will have a formula. It will depends on your internal financial policy, how much mileage that you put into that. For example, for CU that we put is mileage claim is 0.35 per kilometer. So we will set the whole formula for it. So this one, no one can adjust it. It will just generate by itself. And then after that, same thing, is it approved, reject, or reimburse? And then extra one more thing is that, is it included inside petrol receipt claim? Because sometimes some of the LC, they will rent a car, like LC car or something, and then the whole car will be using like for different projects. And then they will pump the whole petrol, and then they have a petrol receipt. So if I say it can be included in the petrol receipt, that means that even though they put in here, but then the VPFL or the FLPIC can double check again to make sure that it's already covered inside there. Okay. So that's all for the projects and expenses. And then next is logistic is roughly the same thing. So you can use this tracker and then duplicate into your DMF. Yep. So that's all for this tracker. Let's go back here. All right. So after this tracker, then we're gonna talk about like what is gonna happen before IG projects realization, which is now. Like I believe most of project gonna started like January, beginning of January, sometime around that. So before IG projects realization, so what VPFL or even OCFL have to do. So first thing first, follow up with the EP approval progress to ensure that the project is achieving at least 70% of its goal. Because I believe that most of the LC are using 70% for their when they do the LC budget and everything. Okay. So and then next thing, review on the budget weekly, because it's right now is almost beginning of your realization, so it should be able, everything is almost in the confirmation and finalizing. So make sure you review it weekly to ensure that all the data inside there, all the information inside there is up to date based on the current reality. And then next thing is communicate between IG and PD to ensure that the project's members, anyone is involved into the projects, understand the budgeted expenses. Even sometimes they understand it, just make sure they know it, how much they can spend it per week, so that they when they spend it, they will be having this mindset, okay, I have to follow the budget, instead of like, oh, it's okay, I can still break the budget. or like spend extra of the budget. Okay. So, and number 4 is that track and control the privatization expenses. Okay. I think this one is a bit late to say now, but still, I think some of the LC is still doing a bit of attraction investment to make sure they can get more EP. And then the PD sales transportation, you can actually record it into the spreadsheet just now. And lastly, about logistic payment or anything that is that you're going to spend during the privatization. And lastly, review and track the progress of profit strategy. At least most of the LC, you have your own profit strategy, but as the OCFL or VPFL, make sure that it's happening. Make sure that the members that work on it really understand why profit strategy is so important, because it's going to help your project and make sure the project is profitable. Yeah. So after having all this done, then basically is what you're going to do in pre-verification, and then we will go into before we go into realization, then this is something we just received. I think I'm not sure it's all the VPFL have received from IG side, but this from IG. There's a few 11 of these urgent projects that either I think they are less than 5 EP so far. So for what VPFL and OCFL can do is that make sure you schedule a synergy meeting with IG and also PD for IG projects team. And then who is the one that have to involve is suggested VPFL, because VPFL able to make the decision for any related financial stuff. VPIG, because they can make the decision for any activity card or anything related to the project's quality. And lastly, about VPPD, which maybe you have to increase the goal of financial partners, etc. And definitely project leader or OCFL. So what it gonna make sure happen is that there is a 5 EP in this project at least, and it's recommended to have at least 2 weeks before the project started to have at least 5 EP in these projects, because most of the EP, if let's say they are coming from some country that is hard to get a visa, then I think they need roughly around 2 weeks to make sure everything's get it done and come here. Yeah. And then next thing is review your budget based on the current reality, increase the profit strategy. That's why you need the VPIG and also project leader into that, so that they can provide more activity that can actually help with the profit strategy. And next thing is that increase PD goal. That's why we involve VPPD in here, so that they know, like, do they have the manpower to increase the goal or not, and how is the situation of the PDs. Yeah, if let's say your PD really cannot make it, so try not to increase the goal for them, because no matter what, they cannot make it. And lastly, I think that will be the most easiest one, is the decrease the budgeted expenses. Since your EP goal is decreasing, what is the thing that you can cut down, and what is the thing is not necessary, especially those non-16 standard stuff, please cut it down. And then after you've done all this and you're still unable to make sure this project have a 5 EP or even increase any of your income or decrease any of your expenses, then we will advise you to close down your projects, because if you don't close it down, you will affect your whole LC income, and maybe it will drag the whole thing. So this is just, I hope that all the VPFL can go and talk to this projects team and make sure it up to the standard, up to 5 EP, and make sure you don't need to close out at the end. Yeah. So that's all for the pre-realization. And next will be the during realization, or before the realization. That means that there's some preparation you have to make for the realization. First thing is that duplicate the expenses tracker, that the template that I showed just now, into each of the project's DMF, and finalizing the setting. So the setting will be like you have to log some of the thing. Like what is the thing that you have to set that only VPFL can update it, and what is the thing that only project leader can update. Yeah. So you see on the second one, set permission based on the role according to ensure that there's no mistake happen. All right. Once you set all this, then the OCFL brief all the project members regarding the importance of following the budget, as well as documentation, like just now we talked about the EP agreement. And then next thing is that OCFL brief all the project members regarding the internal financial policy. I believe all of the LC have your own internal financial policy. Inside that, it will record all the payment or anything differently. So make sure all your members actually understand about that to avoid any miscommunication. And also same thing for a claiming process. Even though we have the expenses tracker, but make sure they understand that when they will get their money. If I say also communicate, if I say the amount is super high, how can they get some money from the FL side first to pay for it, so the members no need to spend too much, because sometimes we understand that member might not have that amount of money to pay for it. Okay, cool. So for next is that allocate PIC for any financial or legalities management with the EP, for example, even collecting EP fee and also collecting the EP agreement. If I say you have allocate or even like VPFL gonna do it, then it's fine. But as long as you have someone who is doing it, that either your OCFL or VPFL can track on, if I say they're not the one who doing it. Okay. And lastly, set the routine for synergy between the projects team, OCFL, and then OCFL and the VPFL. So why the routine is important is that to make sure we constantly update, instead of like until something happened or until the budget is exceeded, then we only realize, oh no, it's we exceed budget and what can we do now? But if let's say we set a routine and we constantly review it, then we will know that what's going to happen next. And that will be all for the project's realization preparation. And then next thing is finally we come to during the IG project's realization. So during this IG realization, um, this is some of the procedure that we recommended for all the LC to do it, and hopefully everyone can actually follow it. Basically, this is the bare minimum that you have to do. Yeah. So for project leader or even allocated PIC, you have to update the expenses tracker. Basically, is the spreadsheet that I showed just now daily, including receipt update. Why we recommended daily is that because like in one day for the IG realization, we have spent a lot of money. And if let's say you wait for like only whole 1 week and only update it, then most of the time we will forget what we have spent. Yeah. So we recommended to actually really update daily. If let's say you are in a place that is no internet or something, try to write it down in a notebook or something. That after that you can update. And next thing is that OCFL have to approve the expenses stated in the tracker weekly. So basically, in 1 week, then the OCFL have to go through it together with the project leader or the allocator PIC who update the tracker, and then to see is it why is it should be approved, and then what's the detail inside there to make sure that all the expenses is based on the budget. Yeah. So you can see expenses that are not listed in the budget shall be rejected or wait for VPFL approval. If I say there's any changes, maybe sometime because of some emergency or any extra changes of the plan. Yeah. So after that, then OCFL will review the coming week expenses together with the projects team. So basically, once you approve everything, and then you can review again, tell them that okay, next week is still realization, but what is the activities gonna happen, and what is the expenses we gonna happen, gonna occur, and then so the whole project team actually understand the situation. And next thing is that the VPFL follow up with the OCFL bi-weekly, recommended bi-weekly at least, because in one this case you most of the project only have 6 weeks, so bi-weekly at least 3 times for the whole projects. If I say monthly, then it will be too lesser, and then you cannot do anything or cannot change anything if there's something happen. Yeah. So VPFL follow with the OCFL bi-weekly to ensure that the to basically to ensure the project's budget versus actual progress is up to date, and also make sure that there's not something emergency happen. And lastly, VPFL reimburse the expenses monthly. This one, I think most of the LC is doing it because you have to update your LC, I think income statement, etc. So yeah, and that will be all for this IG projects realization. So next, I think proceed to Q&A. Yeah.
Yeah, so does anyone have any questions about the budget and control and cash flow part, or even the parts before that? Yeah, if you do, you can type in the chat box now. I think we'll have a few minutes for this, and so if there are no questions, then we will just close the space off. Yeah, but yeah, if anything, please do address your questions now, because that will be for the best. Okay, so I take it that there are no questions. So if anything, of course, if there's anything, you can approach me. So this is Jessie. If you didn't know, I think I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. Haha. But I think yeah. So you can approach me or you can approach Ing. Yeah, and yeah. So I hope that you really got some insights from this space, and we'll send the output to you soon. So thank you very much for attending, everyone, and have a good
Uh,
night.
Jessie,
Yes, Ing.
there is some there's
Question.
one question. Yeah.
Ah, so good. Okay, so if the EPs are going to stay at the student dorm in the school, do we need to specifically provide them a small fridge as stated in the EP agreement, or is it? Yes. Okay, so if they are staying at the student dorms, then I think it is okay. It's just that you need to set the expectation that they will not be this kind. You need to set the expectation about how the facilities will be. So um it does it mean they also won't be able to cook? Yeah, so I think it's just if they will not be able to cook or store food in the dorms, then it's just a set expectation that to let them know where they can find food and so on. Because I understand that some of the accommodation will have some constraints, but ideally um you will have a kitchen and you will have like a fridge for them to store food. Yeah, but if that really cannot happen, then just ensure that the expectation is set at the beginning so that they know as well. Because if they are not able to cook and not able to store food, maybe it means that they will have to spend more. Yeah, so you can they will have to spend more and bring more money for like their daily food expenses. So in this case, yes, you can adjust the agreement, but of course make sure that your LC sends it to me beforehand and I can check through it that it's okay. Yeah. So in this case, it is okay. Yeah. Okay. So are there any more questions? Yeah. So thanks for the question, and I hope that clarified it. Yeah. So any more questions? Okay. So I still really no more questions. Yeah. So yeah, then I think that brings us to the end of the space. So thank you so much, peeps, and I'll just end the broadcast here. All right. Good night.